Hi everyone! In today's tutorial we will present and explain the new tag feature. Tags are very useful in terms of optimizing your workflow when you create virtual tours because they allow you to group elements in the tour by means of assigning a tag to them and then working on those elements all at once instead of one by one. So we can assign a tag to a number of elements in our tour that share a certain characteristic and thus make them a group. This will help us to organize and manage the content in our virtual tour, which later, for instance, is useful when searching for certain media or elements in your tour. But where the true potential of this feature lays is in assigning actions or changing behaviors to a whole group of hotspots, buttons, or media all at once, simply by their tags and categories, which tremendously speeds up the process of creating really powerful tours. Also, we can now create dynamic URLs to which we can add these tag commands so that they show or hide all those elements in our tour that have a certain tag assigned to them. You're probably guessing where we're getting at with that, and that's creating, for instance, a branded and an unbranded version of one and the same virtual tour. Alright, so let's have a look where those tags are and how we use them in 3D Vista Virtual Tour Pro. So in our Publish tab, if we scroll down a little bit, we can see that there's a new section called Tags. We can write in here to start creating our first tag, Floor 1. Just hit enter or click on the little plus button to create that tag for your project. Now we can see that our first tag has been created and we can delete it, or with this button here we see how many elements we have assigned to this tag, which right now is 0 because we have only just created the tag, not assigned it to any of the tour's elements. Generally, one way of working with tags is to create a list of all of your tags here in the Publish tab and then subsequently assign them to their media or hotspots or skin elements. Or we can do it the other way around and go to our media, to our panoramas for instance, and create and assign the tags dynamically as we go along. For instance, all of these panoramas, which are the terrace, we can select them all, then go to tag and type in terrace and edit. If we now go back to Publish, we can see that this new tag has been created and also appears here in the list, and it is currently assigned to 5 media or 5 media elements. So it's been assigned and created at once. But let's delete this tag again, and as you can see, the program asks us to confirm, and when deleting the tag, it obviously also does not apply to our 5 panoramas anymore. So these are the two general approaches to creating tags and working with them, and you may think it's cleaner to first create all of your tags here in the Publish tab and then assign them to the media afterwards. But that has one downside, and that's if you have a tag which is not yet assigned to an element in your virtual tour and you decide to close the project and to continue working at it at a later point, then those tags won't be there anymore. Basically, the program understands that any tag which is not assigned is useless and therefore deletes it from the project. So if you want to make sure that they don't get deleted, you need to assign them to any element in your tour before closing a project, whether to a media, to a hotspot, or to a skin button or anything like that. Or if you want to make sure that doesn't happen, we recommend working directly in your media instead and creating the tags as you assign them. So we create a tag every time that we need one and we simultaneously apply it to the media that needs it. So let's do that. If we want to assign a tag to all of these panoramas here, which are all floor 1, we just go ahead and select all of those panoramas. And since we had already created the tag floor 1, we can just go ahead and select that from the drop-down. Or if we start writing floor, we will also see all existing tags that correspond to what we are typing here show up for us, and we can select them. So we select that, and since this is a tag that already exists, the button here does not show a plus to create the tag, but it shows an arrow to assign the tag to the selected media. So now all of these selected media here now have the floor1 tag assigned to them. This one, for instance, has no tag assigned, but if I select this one or this one, the tag shows up and is assigned correctly. Then from here to here, that's all floor 2. So let's type that in. And here, because we have some media selected, with that button, at the same time that we're creating this new tag, we're also assigning it to the media that's selected. See? Now it's assigned. And then these would be the basement up until this one. So let's tag these with floor -1. And we assign it. And let's finish with these ones, which would be floor 3. And as you can see, every time we create a new tag, the program assigns them a new color. So that, let's go back to publish, so that we can easily distinguish the different tags. We also have the option here in the lower corner with the little arrow to change that color and customize it. And of course, if we go to the panoramas now, the tags continue to be the same, floor 1, but they adapted that new color accordingly. We could even change the color from here as well. So this is dynamic. If we change it here, it also changes in the Publish tab and vice versa. Also, important side note, if you start typing names for your tags, keep in mind that the only characters allowed are letters, numbers, and dash and underscore. Any other symbols and signs of your keyboard are not supported because they could interfere with other commands inside the tours, which we will see later on. Similarly to changing your tag's color, you can of course also change its name. So this is editable. If you double click on it, you can edit and change this, for instance, from floor -1 to floor 0. Enter. And now this has changed for our tag and is reflected in all media that this tag has been assigned to. Let me change this back to the way it was. And to finish up, I will assign the rest of my tags. These ones, for example, which have been taken at night, I will assign a new tag called night. But at the same time, these panoramas also belong to the tag floor 1, so I will go ahead and assign that tag as well. And as you can see, we now have 2 tags assigned to this group of panoramas. Actually, let me correct that. This one and these 2 do not belong to floor 1, but to floor 2. So let me take advantage and explain to you how to unassign a tag. And that would be simply by clicking on the little X icon. And that's it. It's not there anymore. The tag itself continues to exist. As you can see, tag 1 is still here in our list. It's just not assigned to the selected media anymore. So these 3 would be night, but also floor 2. Okay. Assign, and that's it. So we have night and floor 1. And night and floor 2. And I'll just quickly add a couple more tags, such as terrace for these ones. And for instance, let's group all of the bedroom ones with a tag called bedroom, this one and this one. And all of the bathrooms as well, which would be this one and this one. And for these 2, we will create one called spa. Okay, now that we have quite a few different tags assigned to our panoramas, let's have a look at a very interesting little icon, which is this one up here. If we click it, it'll show the color of the tags assigned to each media here. So this is a quick and very visual aid for our orientation. So if we know that orange is floor 2, we can quickly scan and see which panoramas belong to floor 2, which ones belong to floor 1, which is blue, etc. So the bigger our projects get, the more helpful these little tricks get. Similarly, we can now also use tags in our search field. So if instead of searching by file name, you want to search by tags, simply use the hashtag icon, which is the command to look for tags. And let's search for spa, for example. Now, this has filtered our panoramas by the tag spa and only shows those ones that have the spa tag assigned to them. Or let's search for night. Or we can even, with spaces, search for a combination of tags. For instance, in night, we had floor 1 and floor 2 panoramas. So if on top of night we also put floor 2, it applies a filter to both of those tags and only shows the panoramas that carry both tags. And we can also add other search elements that you already know, such as the name of the media. For instance, if I put balcony, it is now doing a very, very precise search of tags and the name. And while we're at it, apart from the name of the media, you can also search by the name of the file. Many people don't know this, so maybe it's worth mentioning here as well. If you want to search by the name of the underlying panorama file, so the JPEG rather than the name you gave to the panorama here inside the project, simply type file, double point, and the name of the file. So Pano 10 is this one, Pano 20 would be this one, etc. So just a quick reminder, or maybe for those who were not familiar with the search field. And of course, again, this is compatible with searching by tags and by name as well. Tags can of course also be applied in the same manner to photo albums, to videos, to 360 videos, and to floor plans. And they will work just the same as with the panoramas. And that's the application of tags in multimedia of your projects. Other than that, we can also apply and assign tags to entire projects within our list of tours and to skin elements. In terms of our projects and virtual tours, tags can help us to organize and manage our list of tours. For instance, we could assign tags according to the type of tour. So for this one, real estate. This one too. And this one too. This one could be sport, just like this one. And this one would be training, together with this one as well. So we could go ahead and categorize our whole list of tours by the type of tour. Or what's super interesting as well is to categorize and tag according to the client. So imagine you usually work with 5 different clients. Then you can create a tag for each one and assign every tour you create to the specific client. For instance, this would be client 1. This would be client 2. This would be client 3. And this would be client 1 again, etc. Now, with our tag icon, we can see the tours with their individual categories or tags. Or if we search by tags with the hashtag client1, we automatically get all of the tours assigned to client1. Or if we want to quickly see all of our real estate tours, we just search by that tag to get all of our real estate tours to which we had assigned the real estate tag. And as a quick side note, we can also search our projects by ID, or the number that appears here in the URL at the very end. So if this tour is the number 20, for instance, we can go here and type ID _20, and we'd see the tour with that ID. Or 374, same thing. So if your client sends you a tour URL and asks you for a change, with that URL and ID you can quickly find the respective tour project. So that's the tag feature with regard to your tour projects. Now let's have a look at tags in hotspots. To demonstrate the potential of tags in hotspots, I opened this project right here, which represents a typical architecture or construction project that could benefit a lot from categorizing hotspots with tags. Let's preview so you can see what I mean. So if you have a project like this one with a lot of hotspots all around, where all of these hotspots belong to these 5 categories down here, so we have electricity, lighting, plumbing, furniture, and books or media. So let's assume you want a button menu down here where with one click we can show or hide all of these hotspots here according to their individual categories. Prior to the introduction of our tag feature, this was a huge amount of manual work because we had to go hotspot by hotspot and assign them to the button. Now with the tag feature you'll see how easy and fast that is. Let's go to the panorama and to the subtab Hotspots. And here we have all of the hotspots that are in this panorama. If we select one, we can see that there's also the new section, Tags. So just as before with the panoramas, we now go ahead and select all of the hotspots that have a certain characteristic in common and which we therefore want to group into one tag category. For instance, here I selected all of the hotspots that refer to furniture. And I'll create the tag furniture and assign it. Okay? See? This one has the tag furniture, and so does this one, etc. Now let's do the same thing with all hotspots that are referring to light, and assign the tag light, and so on. Right, now that I tagged all of the hotspots, I can just copy them, Ctrl+C, and paste them, Ctrl+V, in the next panorama, which is just a different stage of the construction or planning process, and therefore will contain the same hotspots in the exact same places. So now all hotspots in the other panorama also have their respective tags still assigned. So that was the first step. Now we would go to the skin editor, select the electricity button, and give it the action Show Hide Hotspot. Again, if you look back to how this worked prior to tags, you had to select here Panorama 1, and then which hotspot in Panorama 1 this button should show or hide. Then do that same thing for Panorama 2 and all hotspots in all panoramas individually, and each one of those would have been a separate action for the button. So a lot of work and a lot of room for errors. Now we can use just one single action for the whole group. So we select Toggle, and here we select the electricity tag, assign, and that's it. Now this button will toggle the showing and hiding of all hotspots that are categorized or tagged as electricity, no matter the media they're in. And then we'll do the same thing for all of these remaining buttons. To save time, we can just go ahead and copy. So select the action, Ctrl+C, and then paste it to the next button, Ctrl+V. And then I just delete the tag electricity and instead assign the tag light. And we're done already. So this definitely is a big time saver, as we can just apply it to tags and therefore to as many hotspots at once as are in a tag, instead of having to go hotspot by hotspot for, say, 200 or more hotspots in a tour. The only thing we'd now still have to do is invert the visibility of our hotspots, because the way they are right now is visible by default in the tour, while the icon down here is ghosted and thus indicates that the icons are currently invisible. So in order to change that and make that the hotspots by default are invisible, I'm going to copy this action and paste it. And to the first action, I will change it to on initialization, so that when the tour initiates or starts, it'll execute the toggle effect, which means it'll hide the hotspots which initially are visible, and later then, if the user clicks on the button, it'll change back to visible. And I do the same thing for all buttons here, of course. Now, if we click preview, as you can see, all hotspots are hidden, and when I click, they'll show. And even if I change the panorama, it maintains that hotspot visibility, and the functionality of the buttons is, of course, the same. So this is just one application where you can see that working with groups and tags tremendously facilitates our workflow and makes creating large projects so much easier. And beyond this type of project management virtual tour, there are hundreds of other use cases and projects where this tag mechanism optimizes your workflow and the way in which a virtual tour is experienced. In that respect, your creativity is the limit, and honestly, you guys never cease to surprise and amaze us with the variety of applications and tricks that our new features could be used for. So we're very excited to see your tours and hear your feedback. Feel free to post them in the comment section below for others to see. Also, very important, as we mentioned at the beginning of the video, these tags can be saved when you're saving a skin. So if you have a number of similar projects, so the same approach but say for a different house, you can just save the skin with all this applied, and then in the new project simply apply the new tags to your hotspots. That way the button menu down here would work the exact same and the whole mechanism is the same as well, without having to assign the actions all over again. So again, a big time saver, and you can actually reuse the material. And last but not least, let's check out how we can use tags for skin elements. You can assign tags to each and every of these skin elements, whether it's containers, images, buttons, text, etc. No limit here. Similarly to tags in other tour elements, they are useful in the skin as well to group and sort skin elements on the one hand, but on the other hand, they're especially useful for assigning actions, which we can now assign to a whole group of skin elements that have something in common. For instance, we could show hide all elements that have the tag XYZ. So again, we'd be grouping the elements and won't have to go one by one through each skin element here. The biggest potential that tags have in skin elements, however, is yet another one, and we briefly mentioned that at the beginning of this tutorial. Once we uploaded our tour, we can add a short command to the generated URL, which will open the tour showing or hiding certain elements according to the tag. For instance, we could create a very branded and very full virtual tour like this one. And this we actually get asked a lot, so this will be very useful for so many of you guys. So you create a branded virtual tour with its logo up here, the address. If we open the info window, I'm sure we will also have some sort of branded information about the realtor or builder or the tour creator even, and which we want to have online for everyone to see. But we'd also like to upload it onto a real estate portal, for instance, which obliges us to have a completely unbranded virtual tour without logos whatsoever. Well, in that case, we could now have one single virtual tour online and simply give them a modified URL of that tour, which will hide the branding elements like this one, and maybe some information inside the info window. Sounds more complicated than it is, so let's see an example. Select the elements which you later want to hide and tag them with a common tag, such as brand. Create and apply, and apply that same tag also for the address here. Maybe also for the line, so you don't just have a random line flying around all of a sudden when the rest below disappears. And maybe also the tour information as well as this line. So the idea is that the tour will then be seen like this without those elements, okay? So let's publish as usual. And once it is uploaded, we go to our tour. Here we have our tour URL, so we copy that and paste it in our browser. And here's our standard normal tour with all elements, including the branding. Now for the modified URL, in order to know the exact command, I suggest you go back to the program and under Help, you can find the release notes. And if you look for this update, you can find an explanation of this part. See? Show overlay, which would be for showing and hiding hotspots. And below that, the same thing, but for skin elements, which is what we are doing in our example. So if we want to hide, it would be this line of code. And here we would replace tags with the actual name of the tag that we want to refer to. Or you can also use this version, which is just a shorter version of the same code. So I'm gonna copy this. I go back to my tour in the browser, and remember that when adding such commands to the URL, you always have to place a question mark first, and then we add our code and we put our tag, which was brand. Hit enter. And as you can see, we have our tour like before, but without all those elements that carry the tag brand. Now, depending on your preference and how you mount your tour, you could make it so that these elements then move all the way up here by aligning them on the top, etc. So that's a very fast and easy way, simply with a few tags to show or hide certain elements, and depending on the URL, we can visualize it with or without the branding elements. I don't want to spend too much more time on this topic, but if you go to the release notes, you can see that we can do this with hotspots, with skin elements, for showing, for hiding. We can even combine several of these commands, separating them by comma, so we get combinations of showing, hiding several tag elements. So this is very, very powerful and gives us a lot of flexibility with just one and the same uploaded virtual tour. So that was that, yet another application of tags. Finally, let's have a look at a few more things where we can apply tags, and a new action even, which we have added and which also benefits a lot from tags. Back to our initial project. If you remember, we categorized our panoramas according to the floor that they belonged to. Now, if we go to the skin and have a thumbnail list, for instance, the thumbnail list is also something where tags can be very useful. So you may remember that here in Media to Show, we can select which media the list should show. We can even select Custom and then select one by one the media to appear in our thumbnail list. Now we've also added the option to add by tags. Imagine that in here we now only want to show the panoramas that are in floor 1. In that case, we select floor 1, assign it, and now automatically only have those panoramas that carry the tag floor 1 in our thumbnail list. So this is a good way to break down large amounts of media into smaller groups of thumbnail lists. So we could even have 4 buttons, and each button would show its own thumbnail list with only the media for that particular floor tag. So you would assign to each button a different thumbnail list where all you do is change the tag that it refers to. And it's basically the same for drop-down menus, where we also have the new function to only show by custom tags. So we can just show this segment, for instance, only floor 2 media. If we preview, indeed, we only have the floor 2 panoramas inside the dropdown, and here the floor 1 media from before. And that's how fast it is now to assign groups of panoramas. And now let's have a look at the new action which we added, which benefits a lot from tags and helps you save a lot of work as well. And it's this one, show hide for media. That is basically the inverted version of show hide components. So while show hide components lets us define that upon starting a certain panorama or media, we'd show or hide selected skin elements, this new one is that for a certain skin element, it lets us define that that skin element should be shown or hidden depending on which media we are currently seeing. So just the other way around. Sounds more complicated than it is, so let's just see an example. Imagine you're navigating through a virtual tour and you would like to see a sticker with the location or floor depending on where you currently are. So in technical terms, you would like to see one skin element or another. So while we are navigating through floor 1, we would always want to see this floor 1 text, but as we change to a panorama from floor 2, that should change to show floor 2. Again, if you remember that prior to tags, you had to go to each and every single panorama and give it the action show hide components, in which you had to select which skin element to show when entering this panorama and which ones to hide upon leaving it. So we had to go panorama by panorama or media by media, repeating and assigning this action. Now this is obviously much easier. So we basically do it the other way around now. We select the skin component that this is all about. So we select sticker floor 1 and add the action show hide for media. Now in here, let's see. When the media starts, what we want is to make the element visible, the one that we have selected, the sticker for floor 1. And to which media do we want to apply this? To all those that have the tag floor 1. Assign. Now we could also add an effect so that the start of showing the skin element would have a certain effect, such as fade. We could make that the sticker text would only appear for a short amount of time, for instance for a second, and then it would go back to its original state. So if we defined that sticker to be invisible by default, then it would go back to disappearing after that 1 second. So then the effect would be every time a panorama with tag floor 1 starts, the sticker with floor 1 appears and hides after a second. Or alternatively, we could define that when the media ends, so when the user leaves it and goes to another different media, it would stay without changes, so the way that it is in that moment, or that it becomes visible, or that it becomes invisible. We'll select the option invisible, which is the one that we want, because every time the user leaves any media from tag floor 1, we want that sticker to disappear and to make room for another one. And now we do the same for sticker floor 2. Show hide for media, visible, assign it to all media with the tag floor 2. And every time we assign a tag, the program automatically ticks all panoramas with that tag in this list down here. So once all these are ticked, you could actually even go back and customize that and untick some of them or add others, or use the search bar to quickly find other media which you could then add, etc. Or if we add a second tag here, for instance night, then it would add and apply to any floor 2 tagged panoramas and any night tagged panoramas. See, here all the night panoramas are selected as well. Here you can keep adding as many tags as you want to include more panorama categories. Keep in mind that when we add a certain tag, such as bedroom for example, and we mark this option here, we limit our selection to only those media that combine and have both tags. So if you don't want to mark this, it refers to the sum of all panoramas with these tags, while if you tick it, it will only apply to those media that have both tags assigned to them simultaneously. Let me delete that and again set this to invisible and done. And lastly for floor 3, visible, tag floor 3, and this invisible. Okay. And with that we have our stickers assigned and showing or hiding depending on the category of our media that we are currently in. Indeed, as we start navigating through floor 1, we see the sticker with floor 1 at all times. And as soon as we move up to floor 2, the floor 1 sticker hides and the floor 2 sticker shows. Same if we go one more up, we get to floor 3, and as we move about floor 3, it stays in floor 3 and changes automatically to floor 1 as we go back down. So that new function, in combination with the use of tags, makes dynamic showing of certain elements and the creation of tours with this mechanism that depends on the media currently displaying. It makes the creation of such tours so much easier. You saw how fast it was, and compared to what you had to do before to achieve the same result, the process now really is completely painless and error-proof. And that's it. We hope you like this new feature and addition. If you start using it with a little bit of creativity and imagination, we are convinced it'll enrich your tours and streamline your workflow, especially if you're used to working with very large projects with a lot of skin elements or a lot of media, where categorizing elements helps to stay on top of things. You'll be saving a lot of time, and you can save your skin, which also saves these buttons and flows and mechanisms, so you can reuse a lot of your material and work in future projects, almost automizing many aspects of your tour mounting that way, and potentially save quite a bit of production time and cost in the end. Thanks for watching.